6691 on this. What are you demonstrating in this photo?
This is a demonstrative photo that would show if an individual was seated in the rear passenger seat behind the driver, would be able to obtain a shot into the front seat passenger.
And in terms of the individuals that are in this car, how are they attired?
Mr. Williams had
And sorry, let me clarify on that one. The people that are pictured in the photo,
oh yes,
what do they have on to protect the scene?
they're in Tyvek.
Okay. So going on to this next photo, what are you documenting here?
It is a photo from the other side of the vehicle for its demonstrative only.
What number is it?
6693. I'm sorry. 6692, now moving on to 6693.
And it's just an additional angle. It's all angles from the vehicle.
And in terms of, there's a marker spot there, the red marker on the back of that individual's head in the front seat. What is that showing?
That is the approximate entry point for the defect on Anthony Williams.
And so now going into photo 6696. What angle are you showing in this particular?
This is from the rear of the vehicle.
The orange that we see at the bottom right, what are those things?
Those are the trajectory rods.
Going into the next photo, which is for council, 6697.
That's another photo from the rear of the vehicle.
Are you in any way, shape, or form stating this is the gun that was used?
I'm not stating that's the gun that was used at all.
Okay. Going into 6698. Again, what are you documenting here?
That would be a photograph of the same positioning of the gun from the rear of the vehicle.
Okay. Going to photo 6701. What are you showing here?
This is showing the proximity of the back seat passenger behind the driver in relation to the front seat passenger.
Okay. And so I'm going to go forward to some of the ones now with the ruler. When you are putting the tape measure in, what is your purpose of introducing the tape measure in these photos? And we're now here at 6708 and 6709.
To give, for the demonstrative photograph, to give a relation of distance.
Okay. And so in terms of this picture is showing what?
Well, it's not exactly to the end of the barrel of the firearm, and so it's approximately probably about 12 inches from the head to the end of the barrel.
And so showing it from the other side, is that the better angle?
Yes.
Okay, and that is photo 6713. What are you showing in this orientation of the arm?
It showed, the photo is showing that the arm does not have to be fully extended to obtain that shot.
And so going now to this photo, which is 6714, much greater distance. Up.
Correct. So 6714 shows the firearm in an alternative position, again for demonstrative purposes, to show a distance range, and a firearm can still be fired in that position and in the direction of the front seat passenger.
Okay. So now we're moving on to the rear passenger. Are you using the same demonstrative model for this individual?
Yes.
Okay. So you talked about the blood from Cortland, or the driver, Cortland Henry's shirt on the front. Was there also an analysis done of the blood on the back of Cortland Henry's shirt?
By the crime lab, yes.
Okay. And were you made aware of the results of the DNA of the blood sample on the back?
Objection, hearsay.
Excuse me. Watch your side. Sustain the objection, never mind. This sustain. Rephrase your question.
So, Detective Williams, there's testimony before this jury as to the person who contributed the blood to the back of that shirt. How does that information help your analysis in terms of the shooting inside the car?
The information was learned by me after the fact, and
Objection, hearsay.
And how it helped, not what the information was.
Go ahead.
and it helped to solidify my analysis.
Okay. In terms of, based on the information that you have, can you state how the driver was positioned when the shots occurred for the backseat passenger, Mr. Thomas?
The driver, in my opinion, was seated in the front seat when the shots were fired inside the vehicle.
And in terms of how would blood get on the back of the shirt?
Because he's seated in that position.
Okay. So I want to ask, can we put some chairs here to help demonstrate what we're talking about?
Sure.
So you reviewed all of the photos from the initial ER crime scene,
Yes.
and is there a difference in the height of the front seats and the back seats?
There are.
And so this is not anywhere close to exact. Is that a fair statement with the chairs here?
Correct.
So, can you demonstrate, if you were the driver, how you would be positioned when the individual sitting in the rear passenger side seat is shot? If you could step down and show how would the blood from him then be on this individual?
So the driver is seated in this position, just seated here, and not moving. The blood from this individual, from the blowback, lands here, and blood from this individual lands on the back, and it's all from just not moving.
Okay. In terms of the back of the seat, is his back pressed against the back of the seat?
Yes,
Okay. And that for the first individual or the second individual?
for both.
Okay. In terms of, and you can resume your seat, we'll come back to this in a moment. So in terms of the distance between the individual in the rear driver's side seat and Mr. Thomas in that, do you know there to be a minimum distance they were separated by?
Can you restate that?
Sure. The individual, whoever was in the rear passenger seat on the driver's side, and then Chris Thomas, who is in the rear passenger seat passenger side. Is there a minimum distance that they are separated by?
There is.
And how do you know that?
So we have a known distance. As I said earlier, we are confined to the inside of this vehicle. So we have a known distance of shoulder width inside the back seat of this vehicle. We know a distance of shoulder width of Mr. Thomas, and then we would be able to deduce the difference between the center console and another passenger.
So in terms of the photos at the Jeep when it first came to the hospital, are you aware of how the back center console was positioned?
Yeah, it was down just like that.
And showing from what's been previously admitted into evidence as States 30, photo DSC_0127. Is that important for your reconstruction?
Correct. So this is the blood that is on the center console is consistent with Mr. Thomas crumbling into the position above or onto the center console of the back seat.
So the next photo in that series, again from States 30, is that one shows DSC_0133. Is this the plastic bag you spoke about and processed?
Yes.
Going back to your photos, what are you demonstrating in CSW_6716?
So this is a demonstrative photograph to show that you can fire a firearm from that position in the direction of a passenger who would be seated in that seat.
Okay. Now, looking from the other angle, what are you looking at in this photo, which for the record is 6717?
And that is just a forward picture from the front of the vehicle facing towards the back of the vehicle to show that it is still possible to fire a firearm inside the vehicle.
Okay. And then in terms of the measurement, how far away is the firearm from the face at that demonstrative photo, which is 6719?
In this particular demonstrative, it's approximately 6 inches.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury if Mr. Thomas was sitting straight up and didn't move to the side to get away from a gun?
At one point, I believe that he did,
And how do you know that?
because Mr. Thomas has what's called a defensive wound on his right hand, and that defensive wound was caused by a projectile. So I believe that at some point he turned and put his hands up or attempted to de-escalate what was going on and received the firearm projectile through his thumb.
Okay, and so you're pointing to your right hand. In terms of the injuries to Mr. Thomas, do you recall which hand they are on?
I would have to look at the photograph.
Okay, and we can come back to that in a moment on that. So the, and if Ms. Smith is looking to get the any photos. The defensive wound. Why is that important for you as a shooting reconstructionist?
Because it lets me know that Mr. Thomas was not aware of what was going on. He was taken by surprise, and his hands being up. If his hands were down, he would not receive a projectile through his thumb. His hands are in an up position, almost saying, maybe don't shoot, or I relinquish or something, but he receives a defensive wound due to that projectile, and I think at that point he repositioned to be forward facing.
Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to approach with the NE photos, which are state 75. I'm showing you what's been previously admitted as state 75. Which hand is pictured as owned in photo 12 on that exhibit?
It's the left hand.
Okay.